Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Spiritual Wealth Podcast, where I interview Vern Petty. Vern is someone who has really stood out to me as a very, very expressed being. Some of my greatest memories of him are literally watching him just on the dance floor, completely enraveled in the flow of his own expression. And that really had resonated with me when I first met him and first saw him, really. Some people may or may not know, but I grew up breakdancing. It was one of the first forms of like really deep expression that built a ton of confidence in my life, in my like very early life. And learning Vern's story has actually been really interesting to me, which we kind of go through in this podcast in great detail. But the expressed Vern that I first saw came from pretty rough beginnings, and in this podcast I learned about his difficult path of contemplating suicide and the depressed states and the mindset that's involved with that kind of a thing. And we discussed basically the full spectrum of just going from this suicidal state of loneliness and isolation into the expressed being that he's become today, and all the way up to like really pursuing a path of purpose and specifically service, living a path of service. And yeah, that's kind of what we go through, is the progression of where he's come from all the way to who he's become today and where he's going. So I look forward to you guys watching this episode with Vern, and I hope you enjoy it.
Whew. Yeah.
Hello, Vern. Vern
Hello,
Petty? What was your last name?
Petty.
Petty.
Correct.
Yeah, I feel like I knew that, but welcome to the Foundations podcast, Vern.
Thank you for having me.
I've named it
breakfast.
Spiritual Wealth. Yeah, we've done I've done the breakfast where I brought you to my favorite breakfast spot.
Yeah, it was very, very dank.
Yeah, and we digested a whole lot of thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But you're someone I met this year, and I see you as a very expressed being, which is actually what attracted me to you the most, because I met you through the network, but ultimately I saw you through dance. Is how I really saw you, and I was like, this guy is in his body, going for it. And there's a lot more to you, as I'm discovering. So, even at breakfast just now, you told me and you shared some things that I really didn't actually know about you. And now that you have mentioned them, I want to go through that. But you're a coach now, and you do a whole bunch of different offerings. I've seen you host really cool events and festivals and gatherings, and you do men's work, and you really do a lot of stuff, actually. When I first started to really see all the things you're doing, I'm like, wow, like that's, to me, I'm so much more focus oriented, like one thing at a time. But I want to talk about your journey today and how you've evolved and where you come from. And it really surprised me this morning when you told me that you have spent half a decade in suicidal thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I grew up in Ontario, living out east, and it's a very, very different, polar opposite life to the life I live now. And I grew up with a very suicidal father. I was an only child living on a dead-end dirt road in a farm town, and had a fairly isolated childhood growing up. And there wasn't a lot of vulnerability or speaking on any terms about emotions or expression within my family. And so
because your dad wasn't connected to that as well.
Yeah, well, my whole family comes from a lineage of farmers, and really loving through acts of service and taking care of each other in the financial and in the physical. But when it came to actually holding space for each other's processes and emotions, that just wasn't a thing. That's not holding space wouldn't be a term that would make sense to my family. So it's kind of funny. And now I'm somebody who is so passionate about helping others be seen, have community, and express themselves fully. And in my childhood growing up, when we're children, we're so self-centered. Our brain hasn't expanded to the capacity where it can understand that, hey, not everything is about us. But I had a father who was very openly suicidal from when I remember the age of 7.
What does that mean, openly suicidal?
Saying things like, I want to fucking kill myself all the time in very real manner. Not, oh, I'm going to toss a laugh at the end of this. It very, very much was very real, very present from a young age. Lots of people who you often hear, if your father or husband, mother is a police officer or in the military, the fear of whether they will come home every day. I had that when I came home from school.
Right.
Of, will my father be alive? And that had a huge imprint on who I am today, because I grew up, one, caretaking my parents on not exceptional, just a very, very hyper alert caretaker as a young child.
Yeah.
And the way I learned to do this was mainly stay out of the way and not ask for anything, not try to interject and have my way and say what I need. And as a result of that, I grew up very, very closed off. And I also thought everything was my fault. That's the other part. So you grow up, you think everything's about you. My dad wants to die. I think that's because he's had me. And I don't hold that anymore, obviously. And I don't blame him for what he went through. He was in an incredible amount of anguish and pain because he didn't know better either.
Right.
And so I look at it as a factual from an outer perspective. And now I can just see what has happened. And so I grew up with eventually a lot of anger towards him, but at first just a lot of pain and fear that eventually got directed inward at myself. And I was so angry at myself for my very existence.
Right.
And in so much pain of the own torture that I was giving myself. And that showed up in school as also being such a caretaker and a people pleaser, and also very different. I went to a school with a bunch of kids who lived in suburbs. I woke up at 5 a.m. to feed the chickens. You
guys were literally farmers.
Yeah, we were actual farmers,
Okay.
But I went to school in the suburb town. And I ran a chicken operation from the age of 7. I had no brothers or sisters to be seen by. I woke up stupid early because I had to feed the chickens for over an hour and then be the first one on the bus, which really sucked too, because I was right at the outer edge of town.
Right.
And yeah, there was just all these things that made me a bit of an out. I stood out from the crowd and was very easily picked on, yet having a lot of friends at the same time. And it was the friends that would pick on me. And that wasn't a big deal to me at first. I didn't really care until it started to build up and until I started to believe what these people would say. And then I would actually double down on what they would say. So if somebody's like, "Oh, you're a loser," I'm like, "Yeah, I am a fucking loser." And
so it's coming at you from both. Like, it's coming from your dad, then it's doubling down again through the friend network.
Yeah.
And then you're teaming up on yourself.
Oh yeah, it was just all directions of pain and of just degradation. Yeah, degradation upon myself. And yeah, it was just a lot. And I actually there's humor to me behind it now because I've done so much work on it, and just seeing the amount of pressure that I put on my young psyche and my very being. And I have so much pain within my body now that is actually held in, I believe, is very much a part of that. And that's a lot of the healing, is even the physical pain of what happens when you are so depressed. Because, I was very suicidal for half a decade. I was depressed for almost an entire decade. And so unexpressed that my posture was just shoulders forward, head down, and like bent over. And
so tell me about like the psychology of that suicidal depression, I suppose. Like, what is going on what does the day-to-day thought patterns look like?
It's, the day-to-day thought patterns is you wake up and you just don't want to get out of bed. You just, like, that is the most blissful spot, is that moment of waking up if you don't have to get out of bed, is as I remember it, at least, until I found certain levels of freedom. And it's just this constant resistance to life. It just feels like you're moving through molasses, and you just don't want to go in because you know that you get triggered so easily, and you don't understand it as triggers as a kid.
Right.
But then you go in, and your dad waking up to your dad being angry at you because the shoes weren't put away properly or whatever. Or getting on the bus and having somebody use a nickname at you that you really don't like. Suddenly you're so emotionally over, just full, that everything triggers you, and it triggers you right into this state of deep self-sabotage. Yeah. And in that state, I could just tear myself apart like nobody else could. And just,
you're tearing yourself apart more than
everyone else. Way worse. Way worse. You can by far be your own worst enemy in that case of just hammering.
It's like the antithesis to like the path, which is like you are your absolute biggest fan.
Yeah, biggest ally. You are your own inner homie. No, I was my own inner devil, and I would destroy myself. And that is now one of the things that fuels me so much, is remembering the pain of hating myself so much that I would do these horrible things to myself in my own brain, that knowing that there's so many people out there in that same place fuels me. That is the pain that I have turned into the purpose.
What were you were saying at breakfast, though? It's like when you're really deep in it, it literally feels like you're the only one in the world that's going through something similar. Or
it's such a paradox in that so many people right now battle with mental health, but yet when you're in it, you can't connect to other people. And especially as a child who knew nothing about mental health and had no idea what was happening to him, I had no clue that was the case. And even once I found my purpose and made myself the vow that I wasn't going to end my life, and started surviving instead of really being a victim to every single thing that happened in life, it took a song, shout out to Rory from Dayseeker and being so vulnerable, to write Origin, that actually helped me to realize, I'm not alone. And that's what got me.
Is that the activator? What, like the activator to transformation was like, I'm not alone? Or what were those
the activator was Ride to Live. The activator was recognizing that my life was fucked, but I want to live for myself because of snowboarding. And that was my complete catalyst for putting down the knife.
So the only thing keep you, like, your love of the board.
Yeah, the love. And I could say snowboarding saved my life. No, I saved my life because of the love of my pure expression. Boarding is just a modality. Totally. And that's what I've discovered is I used to think everything was about snowboarding for me, because it was. And now I've learned that I can have that freedom in dance, especially in song, and just hanging out with friends, and in a million modalities, in this podcast, in meditation. I can be so
So it's like
free.
the tool you learned of that passion
Yeah.
is now you've learned the skill of transferring that to everything in life.
Absolutely.
Mine started with skateboarding.
Yeah, there you go.
And then actually before skateboarding, which I think you know, but my first real love was I was a breakdancer.
Yeah.
When I was like really little kid.
Yeah.
And that was such a full expression. It's just so much attitude.
It was
so
dope.
much just like confidence. You just like, I think breakdancing is so sick to learn when you're a kid.
Yeah. And you pick it up so much easier.
Yeah. Cause you're not in your head and like, it's just like, so you just become confident.
Yeah.
Your confidence. But then that applied to skateboarding. And then now I'm a rock climber today. And now I've returned to the dance.
Yeah. Are you going to come back to breakdancing? I saw you doing the flares at Enliven. You almost had it. That was pretty wild.
Mean, breakdancing, I was into power moves when I was a kid, but now it's more it's just dance. Like, there's not even a real need to categorize it. It's just the expression that's coming through in the movement. And that's when I saw you, I knew that you knew how to flow through body. You knew how to just transcend the mind and get into the flow. And there's different levels and degrees of that.
Yeah. And you saw that from me through dance. And I didn't learn to dance through dance classes. I learned to dance through ecstatic dance and going to festivals and just allowing myself to find the same freedom that I do elsewhere, and finding where I'm resisting and where I feel resistance, and just like layer by layer pressing into it until I could free that area.
Totally. But in this case, snowboarding was that first thing. Like, you're having suicidal tendency, but the thing keeping you going is snowboarding season's coming up.
Yeah.
I can bear with this another month because at least I get on the board soon.
Yeah, and that was it. That was the story. It was 1 month from snowboarding season. It had been the hardest year of my life, and I'm just in my living room with that knife and ready to end it. Planned it out.
You literally had a knife.
I had a knife. I have, and my angsty 18-year-old self that tattoos that exact knife on my chest, to me, is hilarious. But that's the way I was going to do it, and that was the plan. And
to knife where?
To knife, I think the plan was kind of Japanese style, like into the gut sideways. We don't have to go full detail into that. Give the listeners the gross depiction of my exact plan, but But yeah, I had a plan. I knew exactly how I was going to go about that evening once I broke. I essentially broke that night and was just like, no, this has to happen. I can't live another day. And that's the thing. Suicide ideation comes from this, for most people, for myself especially, comes from the feeling of it will be easier to die than it is to live another day, another moment. And it is so hard to breathe that I would rather die. And I got to that place and was ready to end it. But the overwhelming sensation came through in that moment of freedom, of snowboarding. I was back on the board and I just had this wave, and one of the most spiritual moments of my entire life, of just having this wave of freedom and of peace and of joy come through to me in the worst moment of my life, one of the most painful. Like, it's not like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. Now I'm excited, da, 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 da. It's like, no, you're about to make the biggest decision of your life that you can possibly make, in a way. And I was so ready to do that. It takes a lot to get to that point. It's not an easy thing to build up to. I was in such a pit to be able to get to that place and finally have the energy to do it. But in that moment, all of that flooded away. And I just felt the freedom. And I said, fuck it. I'm going to stop living to caretake every goddamn person in my life. It's not my fault that I was born. And I'm going to live to ride.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I said, fuck it. I'll live one more I can push one more month, then I can snowboard, and I can kill myself the year after. And that's how I put the knife down.
You know what's coming up for me is in the coaching practice I do with a lot of people and myself too, is when you're working with trauma, the essence that you're working with is there's two things. There's charge. There's something that has a lot of energy on it. And then there's the principle of duplication, of when we recreate a scenario, there's a new opportunity for things to dissolve and shift. And when you said you have this whole scenario in your mind, it's built up, and even physically, you've got like the knife and everything, the whole thing's created. You're at the moment. And at some level, it's like you don't have to go through to the final step of doing it. You've created and duplicated the reality of it so that you could feel it, and then it dissolved away.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, this is what it would be like, and it's not what I want now.
Yeah.
Now
absolutely.
that I've gone almost the full 9 yards,
Yeah.
now I can make a new choice because I can see what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that rings true, but it's like that's what I work with coaching. It's duplication and charge, and the charge gets dissolved through the duplication.
Yeah. And in my practice as well, I work so much with people with fear. Yeah. We all have fear, but I work directly with fear because I find it to be one of the biggest blocks in life to really expanding and being your full self. We all have fear of being our full selves. And I walk people to the edge in visualization, meditation of what would it be like to be your full self.
Yeah.
And to feel that in a meditation and have them have that experience. And often there's so many nerves with it, but there also is so often, if they know what that looks like, there's this joy.
That's like the essence of vision work.
Yeah.
You duplicating, recreating what the whole experience would look like to be living in your full potential. What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What is the actual feeling behind it? What are the thoughts that back it up?
Yeah.
And as we recreate all of that, the imagination is fully activated. Mm-hmm. That's the interesting part about imagination. It's really not. It can't tell the difference between reality and just what's going on inside of its own world.
Yeah. That's so powerful. One of the things that we can all do for ourselves is whenever we are stuck in the fear, or we see how our life can continue out the way it is if we continue to live in whatever degree of restriction that we have put upon ourselves. Bring yourself to your deathbed. Bring yourself to those last moments of your life. If you are leaving this life, there's so much freedom in death. It's one of the most powerful things, is the understanding memento mori, that we are going to die.
Yeah.
And when you bring yourself visually and full body, not just like, okay, I'm going to think about this. No, like have this sacred practice of being in meditation of your own death, in which you look back on your life and you see, hey, what do I regret? You will look at the fear. You will see the path. You will see the point where your life diverged, where you could claim your full expression, where you could go for your dream, where you could truly say, here I am. I want this. I am worthy. I am capable, and I'm going to step into this. Or you can continue to take the path of comfort. And the thing about life is it will present that opportunity to follow that dream again, again. Even as you say no, your dreams will change, and it can continue to present that. And the greatest regret in people that die, and people that are on their deathbed, that are asked this question, what's your greatest regret? One of the most common things is in the essence of, I didn't step in. Yeah. I didn't say yes to me. I didn't take the chance to truly discover what life had for me if I really stepped into the fear of being all that I am.
Yeah, man. I've actually I actually had a posted article on that from a few years ago. I posted it on my desktop, and it was the 5 regrets of dying. And the way it was worded in the one I had was, I wish I had been true to myself.
Yeah.
I wish I had like said what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of sugarcoating it or like framing it for someone else.
Yeah.
It's just, I wish I had said what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Among a bunch of other incredible.
Yeah.
You know, another one that really has been showing up for me out of that 5 regrets is, and I want to do something about it, but throughout the period, the last three years, I've lost touch with some friends. And one of the other regrets of dying was I wish I had stayed in touch with my old friends.
That's cool.
Yeah. There's something that can't be recreated through time, through that longevity, someone who's seen your evolution.
Yeah.
They've seen it all.
Yeah. It's an interesting selfish perspective in a way of having that, but
Nature wants to be seen.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that, but
No.
it does come back to self of like, I want to be seen in the journey. And I recognize I've been through so much change in a few years. And one of my really good friends wasn't able, I told him, I was like, dude, please show up to my grad party. I know you're so busy and going through so much right now, but you're the only one who has seen me go through this giant fucking transformation. And he did. And just having him see me there in such a more expanded version of who I am than the version that he met was just really beautiful for me. And that deep sense of being seen.
Okay, so bringing it back to, you have this moment where you it's like you're pretty much at the verge of ending it, and then new life enters your consciousness, and you're like, I'm going to live now. How do you go from that to being this relatively fully expressed being that I see today? And like I said, my first profound memory of you is literally seeing you dance, and it was freedom. I was just like, that is a free person. I can see it because I know what I'm like on the dance floor when I'm free. And you can see it in other people. And I was like, he is fully in the freedom. That's why we love dancing.
Yeah. Oh,
but how does it go from that to that?
Yeah.
And how long is that journey? What does that look like?
Yeah.
To make that path, to walk that path.
Yeah. And it's layers, right? Because even as you see, like, yes, I feel quite free. And in comparison.
And I would have had no idea about what you just told me.
Yeah.
If you didn't tell me.
Yeah.
Because I just see a free expressed being.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of therapy and this incredible healing journey that we have the choice to take, is that you can radically change yourself so much if you surrender to the change, if you are fully ready to change. And one of the great things of working with death in the way that I did, being around that suicide ideation and playing with is, it gave me this very real understanding of how life can change so fast. Because my life could have ended right there. And after that, I
would have been like a decade ago?
More than that. Yeah. It's 12 years or so. Yeah. And 12 years. And every moment then on is just a gift in a way. And what you realize is all life is a gift. But I chose to live. I was like, I'm going to live through this winter and then I can end it after. And after that winter, I was like, that was incredible. That was like, there was so much pain, but in that purpose of I have purpose now. My purpose is to ride and experience joy for myself. A lot of my tendencies changed in the way that I people pleased, and I took it a little bit easier on myself. I was just choosing myself a bit more.
It's almost like being diagnosed with like a disease and you have a month to live and you're like, all right,
make the most of it.
In your case, you're like, at the end of the season, it's over. Yeah. So what would I do if it's over in a month?
Yeah. You always get that question, right? What would you do if you were diagnosed with terminally ill cancer? You have a month to live, and everybody's got the crazy wild experiences. Mine was similar, but still had the choice. It was still my choice to live or to die.
Right. Self-diagnosed.
And self-diagnosed, terminally ill. And at the end, I chose to live. It was such a great winter in comparison to the past year. And I was like, no, that was good. If this was happening all the time, that'd be great. And I really found freedom in a level of surrender to meeting new friends at the snowboard hill and allowing myself to show up in a different way. And so to me, that's the moment I switched to surviving. I switched from being a victim to life. Life is happening to me. Life is happening against me, to I am surviving life. Life is hard, but I'm surviving. And
which is that's a jump up. That's the next level.
Yeah, whole new level of my life in a way, different form of consciousness. And then when I continued very much to live for other people, though, I was very much going to school to get the good grades, to get the good job because of my parents. I was very still afraid. And although I wasn't getting bullied, and I was making choices because I was going to a massive high school now and whatnot, but I would do so much homework at lunch and whatnot and just move. I just created my purpose around snowboarding. I was working from the age of 13 in the evenings and then all summers, and with the exception of winter, and would just save up money for after school, for when I was finished school. And yeah, it was all about snowboarding. I was just thinking about snowboarding all day. I was such a dreamer, so not present with what was actually happening in life
until you were on your board.
I was on a board. Yeah, that was the two sides of my life in a way, were very much snowboarding and surviving what is not snowboarding. And eventually it got better. I made new friends. Shout out to Jordan Bull. He taught me so much, being with like a man who truly treated me as a brother and who was much older than me and had gone through certain similar things and just popularity and stuff in school, and found skateboarding and found stuff to do in the summer, and life was all right. I still dealt with my own mental illness or my mental situation of being quite in the self-sabotage often and just depressed. I just didn't feel a lot if I wasn't in one of these adrenaline states.
Yeah.
And I get out of high school, I was about to become an engineer. And then I got the call from Jordan to be like, yo, do you want to move to Whistler with me? And in that moment, I remember it so clearly that I knew it would take so much effort and difficult conversations. And it was so many things that were not the way my life was going towards till that moment. But I chose yes. And I chose to defer my application of engineering, which is not an easy thing to do. You're not even supposed to be able to do that. But I was able to, and got my mom off my back and gave her the peace. And I moved out to Whistler, and that's when I started thriving. That was the consciousness shift to I'm going to do whatever it takes to follow the life I want to live.
So what followed next? So you're boarding.
Yeah.
That's clearly filling a lot of the cup. What was that? Then you start thriving. So it's obviously starting to filter out into other parts of the life.
Yeah.
What else starts to thrive?
Yeah. Everything. Just the sense of lightness on your shoulders, and moving out of Ontario and following that path.
Just because it was the right environment?
Because it let go of all the stories I had around who I was.
Right. I'm dropping this engineering thing.
Yeah.
And you're just
I'm dropping this engineering. I'm dropping Ontario. All these people that know me, our friends that know us, are sometimes the things that hold us back by far the most, even if they're kind and nice to us.
It's kind of like family.
Yeah. Family is the same. So I dropped family. I dropped every friend except one. And I moved to the other side of the country.
It's like the definition of reinventing yourself.
Oh yeah, fully. And I went with that intention of like, I am reinventing myself. And then I did again. And I did again. I moved around a lot over Western Canada, and not because I was running from something, but because I wanted to explore. I wanted to explore the different mountains, the different places, and within each, I would reinvent myself and take lots of time to myself. One of the most important things I think we can invest our money in is the things we need to survive, to give ourselves time to play and self-actualize. So I had saved lots of money by the time I was done high school, and I spent it all not being lavish, but just paying rent, paying my gas, and the cost of adventuring. And I went around and would work 3 months of the year and adventure the rest. And learned so much about myself, made so many friends, created a whole new persona of myself. And that was when I got to the point of like, okay, I'm living this life that feels really good and sustainable, and yet it feels like it's not going to grow from here in a way. Like, this is great and it'll continue to be great, but I feel like there's more. Yeah. I've always felt that in the core of my being from a young age, that there's got to be more to life, but I never felt like I was around people really living that. And when I look back, I don't really think I was. And
what was missing?
And what was missing was pure expression, like freedom of expression and service. And that's what led me to becoming a counselor.
And yeah, today you're a counselor, you do coaching, you stepped into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, counselor, coach, men's worker, festival host.
Kind of just defaults. You end up having to become an entrepreneur so that you can express it the exact way you need to.
Yeah, and
like
yeah, and that's one of the things. It's like your gift in life. We all have such a unique gift, and one of the things I really try to invite people into is recognizing that they have such a beautiful, unique gift that we all do, and often you need entrepreneurship to be able to express that uniqueness. And at the start of the podcast, you talked about like how, yeah, I do so many things. You're very focused. Well, I'm also very young and recently jumped into all of this. And the last 2 years have been exploratory.
And I think that is the right path, is to explore a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. How would you what are your gifts? What have you realized are like the gifts that you've been bestowed? Yeah.
Deep levels of empathy and of emotional and energetic sensitivity. So I grew up in this place where I felt like I had to be on point all the time to be able to keep my dad alive, which in a young kid's brain is to keep himself alive as well. If your parents die, you die, is how a kid believes until proven otherwise, or until your brain develops to the point you actually understand that's not true. You are not your parents. And because of that, I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for everything that I've been through to this day, all the trauma, all the pain, because I have this ridiculously sensitive and deep ability to feel other people and to express empathy and to have this emotional range of nobody knows what it's exactly like to be me or to be you. Yeah. Nobody, you can say, oh, I'll walk a mile in your shoes. You can't actually do that. But what you can do is you can feel to your own depths the same energy in which they do. Because it's all energy, all emotions, it's all energy. And although you don't know exactly what it would be like to be in that situation, to have that story, to go through that pain, you can still relate and you can still feel on that level. And when you get to share a story that has been untold or not seen fully, and you get to be fully in your expression of the emotional journey that your body went through,
like you're doing right now,
in that sensation. Yeah, that is embodied speaking. That is, can you speak through your heart through what is presently, but when you're speaking through the past, can you speak with whatever is still held on from those times? And when you're able to sit with somebody that is so present with you, that is willing to be there and help you feel safe and loved and validated in your expression, in what you went through, it is one of the most relieving things in the world. And that's why I discovered through therapy school and therapy in general is just there's no greater pain than a story untold. And because it just eats away at us when we, not any story obviously, but a story that carries great grief, shame, anger, these stories, lessons, yeah, there's pain. And we don't, and I think another part is we don't learn the lesson that you just, like, the lessons are buried in our past. And so many people that don't believe they have gifts, that don't believe they have learned a lot through their life, it's because they haven't gone into the past. They haven't healed the past wounds and learned from those situations, because I believe our past gives us these imprints that are gifts for us to learn from. And that's, you get to this point where you're thriving because everything's a gift that you've been given, every bit of your past.
And it's stored inside of your body.
Yeah.
It's so nuts. Like when you, like something I've learned through breath work is like, if we're just not ready to deal with whatever we need to deal with, the body, almost like a service to us, stores the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets stored until you put time. So breath work, you're putting time aside to breathe into the areas where the emotions have been stored throughout the organs.
Yeah.
And then now you've opened a safe space where you're ready to deal with it. And then you cry about it or yell about it or whatever. Yeah. So it's almost like your body's going like, you're not ready to deal with that right now. So I'm just going to kindly store this for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's this interesting, the past is stored in the present moment in your body.
Yeah.
Just waiting for you to witness it as a conscious observer of yourself. Yeah. Someone else can do it for you. You could do it for yourself. And like,
yeah, and you need yourself to do it, right?
You need to be involved.
You are your own healer. Anybody who's like, I heal other people, you don't need to do a thing. It's like, no way. No, that's not how it works. We're all our own healers, therapists, shamans, all these people that coaches. We facilitate space for others to heal. And massage, like, it's, people think, oh, what about when somebody gives somebody a massage and they have this huge emotional release through that, and that part of their body can move again. It's like, and that was a collaboration between them pressing on certain parts and you breathing. Yeah. Because you could have that same massage, I guarantee, and have very shallow breath and dissociate through the process.
You're not helping the other person who's massaging. Like, there's two ways. You're not one person is massaging, the other one's breathing into the spot to get it. The oxygen has to be there to help move it.
Yeah. So you just went through this incredible breath journey. Is there any key lesson that came up from that?
Not in this particular one. I've had key lessons that have led me to the breath journey. But I think it's just an acknowledgement of the intelligence of the breath as a fundamental aspect of what life is. Mm-hmm. Like, you've probably heard it, breath is life. Yeah. It's this fundamental force that contains all the information. Yeah.
Can you inhale?
And it's just literally moving through everything. So it connects everything, and it makes it's the fullest essence of expansion, because and a part of me just literally went off to go and feed the rest of me. Yeah. So it's it shifted my conscious experience of the world. And I had one specific time where it just became evident to me that I was identifying, like, in life, we identify a lot with our idea of who we are, like the thought.
Yeah.
And at that moment, when I had that first transformational experience with breath, I was like, if I'm going to identify with anything, I should identify with breath as who I am. Mm. So who are you? The easy answer, would be like, I'm Brad. But in this experience, is like, if you ask like a breath worker, they'd say life is breath. I am the breath. Mm-hmm. I am the breath of life. Mm-hmm. That's who I am fundamentally. And that makes a lot more sense logically than I am a thought.
Yeah.
No. Which one are you? Are you a thought, or are you the energetic life force that moves through everything. Maybe some people would even call it spirit.
Yeah.
Right?
Spirit, or you energy.
And now it's become much more obvious, and that has liberated it, because it's like the fullness of the breath, or the oxygen, or whatever you want to call it, that's in everything. The water and the breath is what makes this whole thing, the whole party, go.
Yeah.
Right. So when you get caught up in the idea of myself, I am a thought, it just seems a lot more silly. So now it's a lot more fun to live in life. And this whole thing of reinventing myself is way easier now, because you're just like, what's something I recently took up? But even like, I don't know, just any identification, just like, I am now a podcaster. There's no rules. It's just so easy. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
Okay, I just am one now, because it's just a thought. It's not important. It's not like.
And you aren't you are breath podcasting.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. So there's no. It's just, you can just make it up.
Yeah.
You just make it all up in real time, and that's liberating. And without the attachment, because you just made it up.
Yeah. And that liberation comes from that sense of peace in detaching from that story. And so we're all brought up with this story of who we are, and told by culture, society, our family, what we should be.
Yeah.
And you asked how I got to this place of expression. It was letting go of all those ideas. It was moving around the country, trying new things. I became very exploratory in just saying yes to all kinds of new experiences.
Yeah.
And letting go of what I believed I was, and just becoming curious.
Yeah.
And that's where I found, like, I went to a music festival called Shambhala, and found, there's always the cliche, oh, Shambhala changes your life. For me, it really fucking did, because I had never been that grounded and experienced my heart that open and myself free in expression to that degree. And I also learned how much I held back my own expression, because I was in this place with radical acceptance. I had never experienced that. But even in that radical acceptance, where I wanted to be so free in a way that I had these mirrors of other people being, I couldn't. I physically felt the restrictions in my body.
Through other people's projections.
Well, through seeing somebody who I could tell was just so free in their dance, in the feeling.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm like, I want to move like that, and go, like, you think like that, and suddenly your body contracts. And that's the fear. That was the trauma. I recognized that despite that I had changed my story so much, I had reinvented who I was, I hadn't actually healed the past. I can't, on a physical level, all of our trauma is trapped within our body, the stuff that we haven't experienced.
Yeah.
And I had so much that I hadn't processed, because I was so afraid of expressing myself almost my entire childhood, and didn't do it, and didn't process around that. Instead, I found the place where I was free and followed that, which was beautiful. It's what I needed.
That's pretty good advice. Just find the place you feel the most freedom, and then just follow through in that and see where it takes you.
Yeah, until you're ready. Because that point was like, that point was the place where I recognized how ready I was to heal and to be this. And 3 weeks later, I went to therapy school, because I had just received therapy that absolutely changed my life. And in one session, I learned so much. And I was like, okay, I want a lot more of this. I was so obsessed with growth and with the potential of humans, of humanity, to love. And as I was learning to connect, and through that schooling, I learned that emotions are trapped in the body, and that changed everything. And now one of the things
that's something I learned in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
That has become real for me.
Yeah.
So now you can kind of, it's then the whole body scanning makes a lot more sense. I'm just like, is there anything that isn't free or has a blockage?
Yeah.
And not a bad thing. Like they come
Yeah.
and go, but like you can actually start to scan things properly. A lot of meditations are based on this too. And like you're scanning for unhealed traumas. Or, I mean, you don't even have to call it that.
Yeah,
sometimes trauma is not even the best word to call it because there's baggage behind the word.
Restrictions. Yeah, it's such a negative
blockage.
connotation.
Yeah, where might there be a block?
Yeah, but it's just, hey, like, how can I be curious and loving and compassionate and accepting to create more freedom within my body?
Totally.
Because as your mind allows you to be so free, you gotta get the mind out of the way.
It's like freedom's like a practice.
Yeah,
and
totally.
You know, and I think if you can, that's I think what personal development is so much about is like, I like the idea of it all just being, I like the idea of a world where it's all just like what you do. It's not, there's nothing, we're not like, oh, we got to do the work. It's just like you brush your teeth, scan your body for blockages. It's just part of the ritual. It's just a way, what you do. You go do your fitness, you scan the body for emotional blocks, you scan your minds for what thoughts are going on and like it's just what we all do. Yeah. And that's the world I want to live in. Where it's just casual. No, it's not. It's just casual. What are you up to today? I'm going to do some body scanning. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, cool. I'm going to go climb.
Yeah, it's just a normalized thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really want to help the world realize is that there's a zenith point to healing, I believe. And that's that once you get to this point on your journey, everything becomes easier. It gets really hard as we step into some of the most deep parts of our psyche that are really wiring how we are acting because of our past, because of the trauma, or because of the fear of the future. And then once we get over that hump, once we understand and release the limiting belief, once we release and transmute the emotion trapped within our body, once we transmute the whole situation, everything becomes easier. You'll still deal with tons more trauma, challenges, new things will happen, people will die in your life, all these things. But because once you understand how it's done and that you've done it before and you build that own inner trust, you do it so naturally. And as you say, it just becomes part of life. I'm always doing CBT on myself. And it doesn't take effort. It's second nature now. Yeah, that thought around this, that reaction thought, subconscious thought is coming from fear. So I'm just going to, I imagine waves just like swishing that thought out of my mind or that vision. And then I just come to who I am. And that's just been a cultivated, just cultivation of knowing yourself, knowing what you want to believe, but knowing your purpose, mission, vision, and your values is such a key part of that when you're initially going through that process. And then coming from, okay, what about this situation is embodied in me, is embodied in what I want to embody. And that starts happening so quickly.
I call it self-processing.
Yeah.
Self-processing has become second nature.
Yeah.
It's one of the benefits of being a coach.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're using the same processes on your clients that you're just using on yourself.
And you learn, like, oh my gosh, we're all our own healer. And seeing how other people heal, just asking people questions and seeing them go through the process and going through their body and somatically transmuting it.
So what is somatic healing?
So somatic healing is healing through the body. So it's a bottom-up approach to transmuting trauma, essentially. So instead of going through the mind, finding the story, the trauma, the instance that is creating the blockage, it's going straight into the body and doing it that way. So breath work is somatic healing, essentially. Somatic therapy, which I do, is more of doing what you were talking about earlier, the body scan, and using a combination of visualization, breath, and movement along with a brigade of tools and things that just come intuitively and come channeled through in the moment to help people to feel and express the blockages within their body.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So I just call it a bunch of different other things, but I like that. I like that summary of it. So clearly you've come a long way. you have come a long way, and a surprising journey. Because I haven't known you that long, and seeing where you come from now gives me a lot of perspective on. So I'm proud of you.
Thanks, Dad.
You got this. But as an expressed being, so it seems like this huge pillar. We're trying to become these open-hearted. We're trying to become who we are. Open-hearted, loving, connected beings. And then from that place, the most important mentor I've ever had, he's told me if he had to summarize his message, he said, life is about service. And is this the place we serve from then? It's this, once we find out our authentic expression and we live that in our moment-to-moment life, we serve from that place. So what does service mean to you? What are you here to do? How are you here to serve?
For me, my mission is to create portals. To create portals for people to expand and experience themselves and connect in synergy, aligning with themselves, aligning with community, and aligning with the earth. And
that's one of your brands, isn't it?
Yeah.
Synergy.
Yeah. I run Synergy Ecstatic Dance, which is that's the purpose of it, is to create a space for people to, first of all, connect with themselves through movement, through presence and embodiment. Then to also connect in the community, to dance with others. I believe there is no better way to learn somebody than to be in a state of play with them. I can learn more about somebody in 3 minutes of dancing than I can an hour of conversation. And
wow.
And so I believe that container, which has the structure of no talking, of no phones, all these distractions, in a way, distractions from our heart, from our authentic selves, it creates the space for the feminine and for our authentic self to really flourish and blossom in that space. And then when we get to see each other in that, not only do we heal the parts of ourselves that very much need to be seen, but we also get to connect with people in a much deeper way. And the conversations, once it ends or outside, that people have because they are already in this place of freedom and exploration in that space, they're just so real. They're so authentic, and the connections are incredible. And we always try to bring it back to the earth of how can this serve the earth? How can this deepen your connection to the earth? And to me, if we are not embodied, if we are not connected with our breath, with our moments, then we're never going to be connected with the earth. And that, to me, the ultimate service for humanity is to be a race that synergizes with the earth and empowers the earth to thrive even more than it does already. Because that's what it does for us. It mothers us. It is our mother. And we take from it so unconsciously. And my vision for humanity is the infinite game, is to live in a way where we are so at peace with each other and unified with the earth, playing in a way that we will essentially be able to see a future with the way the timeline is going for our granddaughter. And rabbit hole, but bringing it back to service and how I see service. I see service as, for me, it's anything that brings the world towards that in a way. And for me, my gift, as you asked earlier, is in creating space and facilitating things for other people to expand and to discover themselves, to express. Because my journey has been going from so ridiculously unexpressed that I wanted to end my life to where I'm at now, which is being free enough to love so deeply and connect with people in such a real way and create all kinds of events and hold deep space.
I guess this is why we're going to collaborate.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And do it from a full cup, an overflowing cup, because one of the things that in service we find peace. I think one of the reasons the suicide rate is actually still very high in people with lots of fame, with lots of money, with lots of power, is that they're not actually living in service. They're not living true to who they are. They're living because of this societal belief that they need something more, which comes from the core belief of not being enough. And so they take and take, but they don't get to experience giving. They don't live for a greater purpose than themselves, and that's very depressing. So in service, we find peace, we find bliss, that's why people in very poor parts of this world who are much less privileged than you or I or the majority of people can be way happier than us. It's really beautiful to see when you travel, because you recognize that happiness isn't in money, isn't in power. These things give us potential to do great things and terrible things, but our happiness is within us.
Yeah.
It's in our inner being. And I believe service, when we serve, when we give from our hearts, that is when we find our greatest peace and our greatest joy through our expression of how do we turn our unique gifts into things that not only charge us up, but give to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's about
beautiful, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Overpouring, because you got to give to yourself first.
Yeah. It's like what you said in the car. It's just like, well, we kind of just touched on it, but a lot of people, I think there's a nobility in like giving to others first, or serving others first ahead of themselves. Mm-hmm. And there's like, that's a noble thing to do. But in my experience, it's like just absolutely focus on myself, my own expansion, and it starts to overflow. And it just, it's the most sustainable way as far as I understand.
Yeah.
I just feed myself so much that it's just overflowing into my community, into my family.
Because if we think about it, if we're trying to help every single person, if the idea is we want everyone to thrive, so we're going to put everyone before ourselves, but everyone does that. Everyone's taking care of each other, and no one's taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
But you're your own greatest caretaker. You're your own greatest nurturer, your own greatest parent, and your own greatest healer.
And and you want to be empowered to take care of yourself. Like if I'm taking care of myself, that's the example. Someone might see it and be like, that guy takes care of himself. I'm going to copy that.
Absolutely. Because we're all portals for other people to be able to recognize the I in you and the potential that we all have, because we all are the same in that fundamental way of being human. And if we give to ourselves first, if we learn ourselves, if we create the space within our mind and our body to truly fill up with joy, with love, that's when we will want to serve. It becomes a calling. It becomes a need. I think.
Yeah, I need to.
A need. It's when you have so much to say, so much to give, and you're not doing it at all, and you're not in this space of recharging. It's stuck energy. You're like, I need to create a thing.
It's like someone who works out, and you have to work out, otherwise the energy's all stuck.
Yeah.
So you like just have to go and like feed your body with like fitness.
Yeah.
It's like, otherwise it's blocked. This extremely healthy and beautiful expression.
Yeah. The blue balls of service.
So this doesn't have to be the right, the blue balls of service. Maybe that's what we should name the podcast.
Oh my
the
God.
blue balls of service. If you had to just feel into like some parting advice right now, it doesn't have to be the right answer. What, with everything that you've experienced,
there's no right answer.
Yeah. What's some parting advice, general advice you'd give to people?
Feel everything, first and foremost. Feel everything. It's all for you. Life is happening for you. It's not against you.
I like that feel everything right now, though, because I feel like at this point in humanity, especially, we don't have to fix everything right away. We have to first feel all of what's going on.
And feel what has happened. Recognize what has gotten you and this entire world, humanity, to the place where it's at. And recognize the world is changing very fast right now. But it's up to us to take a pause and stop running with the change and thinking that we just need to keep ourselves afloat and ahead in this game, and recognize, hey, maybe we all just need to take a breath. All need to pause. And that starts with every single human as an individual. I think the greatest thing that we can do to help the world is to help ourselves. And that starts with taking time selfishly, which is a good thing, to serve ourselves, to be of service to the self, to heal the trauma that you have been going through, that you have experienced and that is still running your life today, to create community that is sourced in love and expression. And then when the time to stay aware of everything that's happening, and then when the time comes, you will be ready to serve in the way that feels called, because your gift, you've accessed your gift, because you've taken the time to heal around all what you've been told what you are. So that you can become who you choose to be.
And that with a nice breath. So if somebody watching this wants to get a hold of you or work with you, who would get a hold of you right now? What's the avatar person that would get a hold of you for what you do at this time right now?
People who are deeply ready to change. People who want to heal and want to learn who they are and their potential. I work with people in a therapeutic way, with combining narrative and somatic therapy, and I combine that with transformational coaching and men's work coaching. I use the pillars of the king, warrior, magician, and lover in combination to help people go back and to heal the past, let go of the fear of the future through finding deep trust in who they are in the present, and cultivating the habits and the love to be able to be an absolute loving beast in this journey. So yeah, you can contact me through Instagram.
I'll put all your links in there in the descriptions.
Yeah.
So
that's the main thing I do, and I hold lots of dance events. So
you teach people to be loving beasts.
Damn. But yeah, if you're in Vancouver, also I host lots of events for people to come gather and share the love and expression.
And I've been to the Synergy, and it's pretty sick, pretty dope. Yeah.
So come out, come meet me, and that's it.
Dude, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been really great.
Yeah, I'll catch you again in a couple of years. We'll see what you're doing.
We'll find out. Beautiful.
But, in the short term, we'll definitely have to get that collaborations going.
Yeah, check
Bring the sacred dance and the synergy together.
Yeah, Sacred Dance Synergy coming soon.
Yeah,
Get
man.
your early bird tickets.
Dude, you want a hug?
Yeah. All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Dude. Good job, man.